Welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are archived. You can find them in podcast form at ArtistFirst.com. We accept your emails and comments to DJ@ArtistFirst.com. And now here they are, the wise ones, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
And we accept your contributions too. Just mail them in. Yes, and here we are. We're changing the name of the show to The Wise Ones.
No.
Not
at all.
The show is the Soul of the Everyman, and welcome everyone. And my name is Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
And tonight we're going to give you guys a choice. Or the illusion of one, anyway. No, tonight's topic is an interesting one because we started out with the idea of discussing sort of the illusion, or the idea of that you don't really have control over the most important things in your life, and the two we mentioned were those the people that we fall in love with. We have little control over who we love, and we have zero control or nearly zero control over when we die or how long our life is going to be. But then it kind of struck us that while searching for one of these boss quotes that we put up on the website that you guys should always check, because the website is an awesome place to go to, which is www.artistfirst.com/soul of the everyman or Lions. Is we came up with this graphic that said, which is worse? Two check boxes now: the illusion of control or the illusion of choice. And we went, that's hilarious. So, and I think we discussed, Margaret, not too long ago about the idea that we often try to control things in our lives through various means, and spend a lot of time worrying about whether or not we can control various aspects of our lives.
Right.
And the illusion, the idea that you can control things is something that causes a lot of stress to people. The whole idea that if you only did it right, or if you only did it the way everyone tells you you should do it, you'd be in control of your life, and you'd be this powerful being that had all their stuff together and was always on top of everything. Is a way that things are sold to us, by our friends in Madison Avenue. And it's also a way that people are kind of controlled by these expectations.
Right.
And the whole idea of the most important things in your life, like who you will fall in love with, or how long your life is going to be, are so totally out of your control that to try to worry about how long you're going to live, and people spend endless amounts of times worrying about how they're going to live and how long they're going to live, and what will give me 17 and a half seconds more life versus if I take this one more bite of a cheeseburger or one more puff on a cigarette, I'm taking 7 seconds off my life with each one, or the whole idea of trying to worry about who or mold oneself in such a way that you fall in love with the right person, or that you have the relationships with the people that you choose these relationships, when you really don't. That the relationships, the true ones, grow not only organically but almost spontaneously.
Well, if you believe that your life is to be lived, and you begin to worry about that, it brings in that element of trying to figure out a way to live your life. Which, if you think about it, it's like, I'm going to figure out a way to live my life. And that seems viable for most of us. Like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we should do that.
Shouldn't we figure a way to live our life?
Right.
Isn't that the way it's supposed to be done? And everything around you will tell you, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, rah. Let's go.
And it's only after you've actually taken a few steps out into the world that you realize, wait a minute, it's not working out the way I figured.
No. Funny.
Yeah, I'm trying to do this, and it's not working out the way you figured. I mean, usually when you're young, you begin to look at things and you go, what am I missing?
They lied to me.
Are you guys lying to me?
You told me that.
And you get many assurances, oh, no, this is the way it's supposed to be. This is, so try again. So there's a part of me that understands try again. Yeah, sometimes I do stuff and it's not working. Let me try it again. But what was the definition of insanity?
Right. Something doesn't work out, you keep trying it over and over again.
No, we're doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result.
Right. And you in truth you will get different results every time, but the true point there is that that you just made was that you're told that you should figure out your life, and then once you've figured it out, then it's going to work. I'm going
to go back to what I was saying, okay? When you repeat an action and there has been no other changes, no variables have been shifted or changed, and you're doing the exact same thing in the exact same conditions and expecting a different result, that will lead you to crazy town.
Yes. Well, yes, but I think I liked your first point even better. And the first point that you made was that you're told you should figure everything out, And like you said, the crazy town part of it is that you go out there with this, I've figured it all out, this is how it's going to work, and it doesn't work. Life hits your plans and they don't work out, and yet you go right back to trying to figure it out again.
Well, the attitude of I'm going to go out there and figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay, and without making space for the fact that you don't always figure it out right, and there are things to learn in every mistake.
Yes, and I think that people, when they're told to figure it out, spend a lot of time instead of living their life. They think of it as, okay, well, now I'm not living my life now. I'm figuring out my life right now. Now I'm figuring out my life, so life can't happen until I'm done figuring it out. And then I'm going to go apply. It's like a video game. It's like I'm going to get this all figured out. I'm going to figure out. Pause. Okay, life on pause. I'm figuring it out right now. And the unfortunate part about it is life does not pause while you're figuring it out. And you spend your precious every instant that you have, life when you could be living life, pretending it's on pause and trying to figure it out. And that isn't to say that you shouldn't take in information and make your best judgment and try to do something, but realize that the game never stops, or the life never stops, and the time you spend sort of gaming it out, figuring what's going to happen next and saying this happens, and that happens, and this one's going to do this, and that one's going to do that. All those wonderful stratagems and writing it all down on lists doesn't really get you much by way of true living. It gets you a lot of paper living or gaming it out living. You don't get any experience from trying to figure it out.
You have already set up boundaries where you are having a limited life experience in that gaming mode because it's controlled conditions. And you've been thrust into a world where that may not exist.
Doesn't exist. Guaranteed.
And so what do you do?
Right. And I think we do people a great disservice by teaching people in the beginning that you should be able to figure it all out, or sort of encouraging this, let's call it a fantasy. We started out with the illusion of control. It's inculcated into people when they're young. They're told that if they do, follow the kind of paint by numbers way to do something, that it's going to come out.
Well, they're told that if you follow a system,
right,
that you will live your life properly. And what is your focus? Because it has to do with what your goal is.
Exactly, your goal.
What's your goal in your life? And you're like, what happens is you never considered the same goal that they're trying to present to you. What does that have to do with who you are? Or how you experience what's going on around you? See, the goal doesn't necessarily mean that it's taken into account your actual experience in your own life, moment by moment.
So if you remember, there was those, take these tests, it'll tell you who you should be. That was the way it's put. It's like what career you should have, if I take this test and I score these points on this test, that I should be, a fireman, or whatever it is. And it was like it turned life into sort of a survey or a test that told you that here's where your goal should be. You're gonna spend your talents fit into this box, and this box means you should be an accountant, and
I remember those.
Right? Yeah, this kind of formulaic. You're trying to determine who you should be, but you're not really. You're really trying to determine what box you fit in, and then you're supposed to every other action is supposed to kind of direct you towards that box. Then you've arrived when you're in the box.
It's so funny. I remember taking that test, and and you're comparing the answers with all your friends.
Right.
It was the funniest experience because you're looking at going, wait a minute. This tells me that I should be a scientist, but this other one over here says that you have tendencies to do journalism, and this other, and my good friend was so fun. She goes, oh, I got florist.
I don't want to be a florist.
I'm like, what?
I hate flowers. Carmine, I hate flowers.
It was just so funny because we just looked at each other. She's a very good friend and very verbal. I could have seen her on media in some way, shape, or form very easily. But it was just looked at each other and just burst out into laughter. It's like, okay, now you better start scoping out all the flower shops that are in the city.
But you see, that's exactly the kind of illusion that was kind of given to us as kids, and I think is still being given to people today, young people today, is this idea that you can distill who you are and how your life is going to work, and what you should be doing with your life. That whole phrase. What are you going to do with your life? Down to this kind of find the box that you're going to fit in, and then your goal is to get into the box.
Well, for a society, at least I know with more structured societies, they always depended upon the children to be able to carry on whatever the structures that have been set forth in the society. So I know in Asian society, they you did not choose what you were going to be. Your parents chose for you.
Right. You're just a you were told you're going to be X,
Yes.
whatever it is. The illusion of choice was taken away even.
You didn't have that. They basically, so you had all these tests going on, and parents were all talking to each other, saying, "Oh, my son or my daughter scored on this, and she should be such and such. It's been high in here." And like sitting here going, "But you guys aren't doing the work."
Right. But if we pull back from that for a second, yes, societies are and cultures are kind of prone to doing that to their children, and they're looking at themselves as a thing, as an entity in large. The society as an entity needs X, Y, Z. It needs whatever, accountants and carpenters. But the whole idea of an individual's life as it relates to the society as a whole is, there will be someone to fill the role if there's a need for a carpenter or there's a need for an accountant. There'll be someone to fill the role. The idea that you can say, well, this one person must fill that role, rather than, it turns them into sort of an automaton or some sort of a cog in a big machine that you're going to direct and
they do that a lot in China.
Or as you said, in Asian cultures and even in lots of old world cultures. But I think even here it's done in this idea of, well, this is what's going to make you the most money, or this is what's going to give you the best success, and so on, and you must do that, and you must do this. And it sets you up for what you said before, this idea that you try the same thing over and over again, and you get expecting a different result, because the idea that you must get to this particular goal becomes a way of wasting your actual experience of life, or at least not being, not actually living your life. You're kind of moving yourself through the experiences of life, ignoring what's actually happening, trying to get to the thing that you think you need or want.
Right. Well, it's the idea that the older, wiser ones were supposed to help you, achieve the fullness that is in you, whatever talents or tendencies that are in you. They're supposed to be able to pinpoint and say, okay, this is what your ideal career should be. But the main problem with it was no one ever asked you if this is something that is in you. Because it's more than just these tests and tendencies. An aptitude for math or an aptitude for art or writing, or to have a real life in a career. It takes so much more. But as you said, it gets distilled down into these little control boxes that have got to get ticked off. And to me, it always felt as if, your life is being hijacked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. More than felt. It truly is. Because the young will buy into it because they're young. And I think that what you see then is a great deal of frustration at a certain point in people's lives, where they realize, and what I think you get is you are told to do X, Y, Z, and you say, if you do X, Y, Z, you're going to get to A, B, C, and everything's going to be wonderful when you get there. And you buy it. You go towards it. You find that life doesn't care and throws you all kinds of challenges. And rather than having been prepared for them by giving you the best foundation, you're very much specialized and kind of directed towards the goal. And so these things derail you. They attack you in places that you don't have adequate training to deal with them. And so you end up in a point where you now are unable to get to where you thought you had to get to, unable to deal with the fact that you're not prepared for what the actual living of life has done, where you happen to be in your life, and you get into this frustration mode, and it can be the idea of a midlife crisis, or it can be just a crisis of identity as a young person saying, well, I feel like my life is. I read a statistic the other day, Margaret, and it said that millennials, and we'll just pick on them for a second because why not? They're here. Millennials, a huge percentage, I'm not sure, I didn't go directly into it and really read it, but they said a huge percentage of them find their life meaningless and not worth living and being sort of disconnected. And I thought, well, that's a terrible indictment of what they've been taught. Because if you're a young person and getting to a point in your life where you feel that your life is meaningless or pointless or not worth living, it means that at some point you weren't given the actual facts of life, which is that life is reality that comes right up to you, and you have to be ready to roll with those punches and really ready to accept that you can't control, that you have to be resilient, that you have to allow your heart to guide you, what really appeals to you. The meaning of life comes from what becomes significant to you as a person. You say, well, this is what I love. Follow your bliss. You find meaning in life by what gives you back some feeling of fulfillment, and it's different for everybody. So what you tell people is, here's all your good base. Now go find what pleases you in life and follow it as far as it'll take you. Instead, I think they're being given poor training and poor goals, and then they get to this kind of very young crisis of, well, who am I? Why am I here? What can I do with my life? I don't find any meaning in it. It's a terrible thing, and it's really an indictment of where they were, where they were here, and now they're at their point in their life where they should be, finding the adventure in independence, and they aren't.
Well, I hear a lot of complaining about helicopter parents that are, they're meeting their every need or every want instead of allowing them to explore and see if this is something actually that appeals or resonates to them.
Right.
Sometimes you set a certain idea or goal out there, and when you reach it, it's like, no, this is not what I thought it was.
Right.
And it's perfectly all right to not engage in it. It's the ability to clearly look at something and say, okay, here, I need to take steps in this direction. You may not know exactly down to a breakdown moment by moment of how you're going to achieve that direction. But, okay, here, this appeals. There's a lot here that engages me.
Exactly.
My heart, I want to know more about how that happens or how that's done. And it's usually connected to something very creative.
Mm-hmm.
Whether
you hear that music appeals to you.
Right. Whether it is your building of something, an object, a robot, electronics, programming, or a creation of painting or design or architecture or music. Suddenly the soul sings because you have gotten 5 notes that suddenly you can't get out of your head. And it begins to build into something so much greater. And everything that you are is engaged in that. That is what it means to live, to explore. And this is why play is so very important to children, because this is exactly what they do. They look at something, they try it, see if they can do it better, see if they can make it do other things, exploring always. Does it taste good?
Right.
And just reaching out with their own senses, whether it be their hands or reaching out with their ears and listening to what's going on around them, looking out with their eyes and actually dissecting the patterns that are around them, why that color is suddenly so intense, what is going on with the light, what is going on with the color, the paint. Is it transparent? What is it made out of? How is it shifting in form and color?
Well, and that experience right there is exactly correct. You let your senses bring things into your heart. You look for affinities, and then you follow those. And then the training is, well, like you got to, analysis, how, why. But the first is get to the affinity instead of the box, which is go to be the accountant, and then everything is focused on getting there, not experience, not what makes your heart sing, nothing. We're going to go here, we're going to make $17,000. Whatever it is, it doesn't have, it has no heart. So therefore, it isn't really living. It's trying to control.
And a lot of the control has to do with the fact that your elders in your life want you to be able to make it on your own. And making it on your own, see, that's the definition. What is that definition? Making it on your own. And usually the parent wants to say, okay, this is what you got to do because money is everything. So this will give you the biggest amount of money. And that's like, well, did you check and see if finance is something that this person actually is interested in?
And it's oftentimes tied to these types of, with the best intentions.
Yes.
Because and one of the things we read part of this was that one of the things that destroys the illusion of control, or rather once you give up the illusion of control, is you have to trust. You have to trust life. You have to trust use the term this new age, trust the universe. Trust that your heart won't guide you incorrectly, because if you follow the affinity, you will find something that makes you happy, that fulfills you, that gives you meaning. And the other things, making it isn't getting to a box that you can sit in. It's getting to a point where what you're doing and what you love are the same thing. And part of who you are, your living, is changing you into via the things that you find appealing.
Right.
It becomes an echo and a resonance rather than something that's sort of a mental, we must get to, train intersection A by schedule B. And the inculcation of goals into the young is a wonderful thing, but the inculcation of confidence to follow that affinity and give him all the tools to follow it to the nth and be the best at it, whatever it is a much stronger way to do that. And at this point, we're going to follow the schedule of the program and go back to the studio for a moment. But we're going to come back. We're going to talk about how giving up control gives you back what you wanted in the first place.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
The Timeless Esoterica radio program with Dr. Bruce is broadcast on the fourth Monday of every month at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, on ArtistFirst.com. We explore topics including the paranormal, alien life, mysteries, conspiracies, hidden history, oddities, and much more. Each show will feature a special guest with exciting and thought-provoking discussion. Always keep an open mind, an open heart, live forever, and remember Dr. Bruce believes in you.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is book one of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
Hi, this is Minette Lauren, author of Race for the Sun. Do you believe in guardian angels? Check out book one of my Soul Watcher series. It can be found on Amazon.com or anywhere fine books are sold. Go to www.minettelauren.com, and you are listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Thanks for joining us on The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Let's get back to it. It's Michael and Margaret Lynes.
And thank you very much, D-Man. And you can't change your sets because we're controlling them right now. So tonight's show is it's been an interesting first half hour. If you're joining us late, it's been about the idea that the most important ththings in your life are things that you don't control, and then we kind of launched off into the illusion of control, and we have this great graphic which is up on the website, which I mentioned in the beginning. You should always check, which is worse. Check one box: the illusion of control or the illusion of choice, which we thought was funny, but in fact, the current. And perhaps not just the current people, but let's just pick on them for the current generation has been a little over-controlled, if you ask me, or been told that they should always be in control of their lives and been given a lot of perhaps unnecessary control in their early lives, and then they're sort of, in essence, have been not well trained to deal with the vicissitudes of actual life. We mentioned in the first half hour that there's a sort of gamer mentality of the idea of that you can put your life on pause while you figure it out, and then you pick it up again, and all that unfortunately leads to a person who will not necessarily be ready for actual life, which and we said at the end of the last half hour that trying to force control on your life and not allow your heart and your affinities to guide you into your life and find what actually gives you fulfillment, is sort of leads you down to like a sort of a dead end, sort of a I don't know why I'm here. I don't know the meaning of my life. I don't know why this feels so unfulfilled, this goal that I've been told that I should go to. And it also leaves people in a place that when life actually happens, and life actually happens to us all the time, you don't have the tools or the resilience or the sort of the moxie, if you will. Our parents and our parents' parents lived life right on the edge. There wasn't any particular guarantees. You were happy if you got a job. You were happy if you had enough to eat. You found yourself a place in the society, and you worked hard at it, and you did not, you knew that life was an uncertain business, that you had to work hard to keep things afloat. And as our society became sort of richer and things became easier, you got this idea, well, okay, you can choose where you want to be. You can pick your career goal and go for that, CEO's corner office and all this other stuff. But society in large wanted people to fill those roles and sort of kind of give us these tests. Take this test and it'll show you that you're going to be a florist, or or you're going to be an accountant, and you should go towards those things. I think we're at the end of that process now, where we have kind of fooled ourselves into thinking that we can control life to that extent, and taken sort of the pleasure of discovery and the pleasure of finding who you are through your heart affinity into this head, ego, be this kind of way of dealing with life.
Have you ever wondered why our parents or parents' parents pushed for making a good living? And it's all equated with the amount of money. But with you talking about, well, it was your parents and then your parents' parents, but my parents were in a very different situation. Okay, and when they were young, the Japanese had taken over the Philippines completely. So they were overrun. They were kicked out of their houses, or rather they ran, because they understood that the Japanese were not following Geneva Convention. Let's put it to you that way. All right? And that, as far as the Japanese were concerned, if you were a prisoner, you had no honor, so you could be used in any way, shape, or form they felt was good for them. It was horrendous because they lost home and they lost family members. And that was the reason why I know that my parents were pushing, you need a good education, because no one can ever take education from you. And you need a focus into being able to do something for a society, because then they will always need you. There will always be a job for you. That had always been the focus growing up, but they didn't give you the freedom to choose. And that was because they felt you have never experienced what it is to be in a situation where you had no home and no food.
And no choice.
And no choice. So you want to talk about out of the illusion of control, right? That was where that whole attitude sprang from.
Yeah.
And the only thing that helped keep them somewhat sane is their own spirituality, their religion, because they could see the suffering all around them at the hands of an enemy that was trying to destroy them and use them.
Mm.
So that connection was always there as well. It's acknowledging that in order to get through the very tough times, you must have some connection outside of yourself. You do the very best you can with what you have, but you also understand that there's something far greater than these conditions. And it's your own spirit that gets you through. It's through your own spirit that you have any courage to take the next step. It's your own, it is through that connection with spirit that you're able to be guided into the next step so that you can be alive for the next day.
Right. And the specifics of the loss of control there were an enemy invasion, and the specifics of their lives were that they grew up where there was no assurance, no way of planning for the next day.
Mm.
Your value was zero, and your ability to control your life was zero. So the reaction that you just said was that, first of all, connect to spirituality at that point, because that was the only way you're going to get to the next day. You had to not just say that tomorrow I'm going to do something and I'm going to change everything. No, you knew that wasn't going to happen. What you had to say was today I'm going to survive so that tomorrow I can still be here.
Well, you're going to try.
Try to survive.
I'm going to try to be here. I mean, there's so many stories.
So you right away don't have no longer this illusion of control. You almost have the stark reality that your life is to be lived today, because tomorrow is not guaranteed or given.
That was the core foundation of what they understood.
And although that's a very harsh lesson, it's the actual truth of life, is that life really has to be lived on the moment-to-moment basis, because you really aren't guaranteed. We dress up reality with this illusion that we can determine what's going to happen next, and that if we don't determine it to be what we want to have happen next, it won't happen.
And I just want to add one more comment. They were working through a situation that there is no way that you can even begin to imagine what that was like.
Right.
Because you've never felt where you were so completely out of control and in so much danger and pain. Here in the United States, they'll give you any out you want. If you want to get lost in drugs or alcohol or anything, it's right around the corner. There's a way for you to go get that, so you can be in just out of pain for a period of time. You don't have that option. You either live or you die.
Mm.
It's as black and white as that. And the Western mind has lost that appreciation because you have been given so many options that somehow you can work your way around things. It's like, no, the reality is life or death. And people, oh, well, that's so dramatic. It's like, yeah, because you can't wrap your head around it.
Well, and I think we mentioned, you're talking about your parents, and their parents' generation, and the folks who lived through the Great Depression in this country, or through some of the economic turmoil in the early part of last century in Europe, or the world wars in both Europe and in America and around the world. And your folks were caught up in the Second World War in the Philippines. At these times, you realize that the illusion of control really is a paper-thin diaphanous illusion. You no longer have it, and you understand that life is to be lived, that the moment has to be seized because you're not guaranteed the next one. That training, as harsh as it is, and it's incredibly harsh, something you wouldn't wish on any child or any person, but that surviving in that crucible gives you something that you can't get any other way. You and I specifically went through a crucible with Christopher.
Mm-hmm.
There are existential struggles that people go through, if it's not on the broad World War level, on the individual level, where you learn that lesson. We don't learn it, or rather, we're not taught it to our peril. To the extent that you buy into you can control life, you're also, to the extent, reinforcing what is in essence a lie or an illusion. And you'll find out what kind of stuff you're actually made of when an existential crisis happens to you.
Yes.
At that point, you're given a very stark choice, whether it's the Japanese have invaded my whole town and taken over my whole country, or you are facing the fact that you can't control when you die, or that you can't control whether somebody you love is going to live or die. You then realize that this illusion of control, and unfortunately the illusion of choice, is exactly that. It hits people right in the gut. It presents you with a crisis, and you will find out very quickly what you're made of, because we saw it over and over and over again in the crisis of the hospital in Sloan Kettering. The folks would just fall apart, Their illusion had been such a strong thing that when it was shattered, it shattered them too.
Yes. The illusion that somehow you can save a life. And there were many children saved, don't get me wrong. But the idea that you can control that somehow.
Right.
If you can only get the right treatment, then, you would be able to beat this. And it's a lovely hope. And as I said, many, many children, especially with leukemia, you're diagnosed at the appropriate point, you will be cured. Okay? It was a beautiful thing. But the ones that didn't make it, this is why we say, this is not something that you can control. You can't control who you love and deeply love. You can't decide that I'm going to love this person because of all these characteristics, and you get meh.
Doesn't work. The heart knows.
Mm-hmm. And when death is predicted, you can't say, okay, well, right at this moment you're going to die. Unless, of course, someone tries to shoot you, but even still, you may not die. As far as I'm concerned, if it's not your time, you're not going.
Right.
You will wind up living some way because you're not done yet.
And remember, when folks would be told you have 6 months to live, or 3 weeks to live, or whatever the heck, and if you bought into it, if you said, well, yes, I believe that, and I'll go with the illusion of control, some folks would they take their 3 weeks and they say, that's it, I'm done, my 3 weeks are over. If instead you said, well, you don't know any more than anyone does. how long I'm going to live. I may die tomorrow. You suddenly come to the real truth of the situation. When somebody takes a piece of paper and scribbles on it and hands it to you and says you have 6 months to live, you have a choice right there. The first choice is, do I believe that? Do I believe that this person can control or knows that I have X, Y, Z to live? And if you go to the truth of the matter, you say, they don't know, and I don't know. And guess what? That's fine. I might die in the next 10 seconds. I might live 100 years. And that truth is one that, unfortunately, people have to come to under great duress and extreme crisis. And it's the truth that should be taught to you when everything's wonderful and halcyon and the birds are singing and the sun is rising and it's beautiful. And you say, live your life as though this were your last instant on Earth. Yeah. And you'll have a happy life, because it really is. Could be your last instant on Earth.
No, but that reality was made very clear, especially on the pediatric cancer wards.
Yes.
Okay? There was one mother there. They had been fighting for years to try to bring her daughter into remission.
Mm.
You know, she had undergone a whole series of different types of
procedures and
different experimental procedures. Okay, and finally, and this mother, I don't believe that the dad was around because it had taken a toll.
Mm.
But she had the two kids. It was the older son and the daughter. Finally, those counts came up closer to normal. They got those numbers down of the lymphocytes, because it was through the roof, and they were so happy. And dang it, the next week I got word that her son had died because he was hit by a bus. And we just all looked at each other like, oh my God.
Hmm.
You know, the one that you were fighting for, the one you think that may not have long enough time with you, was not the one that left.
Okay.
That's the reality.
Right.
And to take that in, we as parents, we just looked at each other like, okay, we have to help our children live as much as they possibly can now, because we're not in charge of life and death.
Right. And unfortunately, that's where that lesson really gets pounded home.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lesson which can be learned, which could be learned in a much less stark environment. If it's taught to you young, live your life every day and live it as though it was your last day, without it being dramatic and morbid and all this nonsense. Live your life. You know, we mentioned Leo Buscaglia last time. His whole idea was live every day as though it's your last, and it's not a morbid thing. Once you understand that and bring it into your heart, you realize that the illusion of control is really an illusion.
Right.
Don't even care about it. Don't worry about it. Just go live. The illusion.
Don't give in to the fear, because
exactly,
that's at the core of wanting to control it all. It's fear, and being honest enough with yourself to know that fear is driving you. When you take those steps, you need to control. So I'm going to prioritize things and make my list, and we're going to do this and that. And it's like, no. Understand, what's your motivator? Is it an appreciation for the life that you have right in this moment? Or the fact that maybe you might lose this life? So now you've got to try to control it because you're having angst. Instead of understanding that the life that you are living right now is to be shared. Those that you love. Nor do you have control over deciding who you're going to love.
No. And you're right.
You do have control over how you're going to love.
Yes. And that's the only control you really have.
Yes.
the other control, we mentioned this, I'm not sure when it was exactly in the last few episodes, we mentioned that the only control you have for any crisis is how you're going to react to it.
Mm-hmm. How are you loving in this moment? How are you expressing that love to the person that is so much a part of your heart?
Right.
Are you going to indulge it by dipping your love, your relationship, your person that you love in fear? Are you going to drown them completely in fear?
Helicopter parenting. So I think we've come to the nub of this is the illusion of control, or rather the seduction of the illusion of control, is that you can somehow get rid of the fear,
right,
or assuage the fear. Similar with the illusion of choice, in that you can say, well, if I don't choose it, it's not going to happen. Therefore, go ahead.
Well, just that if one of the main problems as a parent on that ward was, am I choosing the right procedures to save my child's life?
Yeah.
The illusion of choice. Believing that if you make the right decisions, you will change. You will be able to save your child's life. But that's never guaranteed.
No.
Ever.
And the problem is that because people are afraid, they see this as sort of morbid and to be shunned. And to do it, you do it at your peril. We have to trust, and you mentioned spirituality before. Part of that is trusting that your life is yours to live, that you must live it every day and not worry about the choice or worry about the control.
Understanding that there is someone far greater than yourself who's willing to embrace you in arms of love and support you through it all. Come home to God. And on that note, we have reached the end of our show.
Yes, so you may go back to controlling your life. And I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.